Yo, welcome to the channel. It's your boy Skater V. On today's video, I'm doing a complete spoil cast review on God of War Ragnarok. So I'm going to be spilling all the beans, talking about the gameplay, the story, the ending, just rant about my entire experience. So hopefully this isn't a long video, but please comment down below if you like the game. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me throughout the video? And also, please go full on all your opinions on the story. In this comments, you can just go and spoil everything. So for that, let's go and let's start the video. Now let's start with the gameplay. Now, this is a complete upgrade from the last one, from the 2018 title. And while that one was completely different, honestly, from any like third person like game I play where it had like the over shoulder shot, but just like very cinematic, and that it used that throughout the entire game. So like you see Kratos as he throws the axe, as he's pulling people throughout the with the chains. It's very cinematic, and it really feels very intuitive with the controls. So whenever you press something, they're very reactive. I will say that sometimes I feel that there is a slight delay with the shield. I don't know if it's me. Maybe I'm just terrible with blocking, but I did have some moments with the shield that I'm like, okay, I just wish you came out a little bit sooner. But then I also was attacking too much. So if that makes sense, just pressing the button, sporadically, just so I can just take out a big chunk of the enemy's life, when I really should have been more strategic and approach everything like Elden Ring. And not that this is similar to that. I do think that this is definitely more actiony, requires a little less, failing, and also just knowing the mechanics, because it does explain to you, unlike Elden Ring. So this isn't as difficult as like a Dark Soul game, but for me it was pretty hard. I know a lot of people saying that they're just storming through the game like it was nothing, but for me, in playing in balance mode, maybe because I was just going through the story and not really worrying about the side missions at the moment, I was definitely very low level for a lot of the mid enemy stuff. Like probably halfway through the game, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm dying like 4 or 5 times before every enemy. And hopefully in my second playthrough it won't be like that. I'm still debating on playing on a lower difficulty, which obviously that would be shameful, but I probably need to get better with the mechanics. Maybe if I just do a more patient playthrough, I would have I'd probably get better at it, but we'll see. Other than that, the whole RPG element with the armors is still extremely confusing for me, and just added more to that in this one. Not that I didn't understand what I was doing. It definitely was clearer, but it's just something that I don't expect in a God of War title. And that's the thing. Just like the last one, I need to understand that this is completely different, and I have to treat it like a different game. So if you kind of act like if Kratos and all the stat stuff is almost like a Final Fantasy game kind of light, where you should invest in your armor set to help you in different element builds and just like defense and offense, all that stuff, then it would definitely make more sense. But if you're just rushing to get through the story because you're like, oh no, I just Kratos smash, then you're going to have a rough time with this system. You're just going to feel like there is no point. Which, another thing, while we're doing spoilers, at the very end, you are going to get a pretty decent armor suit. So if you were like me and you just didn't invest in anything, because I was just assuming that all the chests were going to give me stuff, which it really doesn't. You really got to do the work and purchase things in this one. I was definitely low level, so that suit helped me a lot to at least to get through, because I probably just wouldn't have been able to get through it. But I definitely wish I was more, how was it? Just investing in my armor suit. You actually get a lot of coins or hack silver or whatever it is in this game. You actually get a lot of it. So I did feel that I could have just invested in just make mistakes throughout this game, just to see what could have worked. So probably my next playthrough, I won't be as like conservative about like, oh no, I want to save my money and see what's the best build in the very end, because honestly, like you get a lot of stuff. So I think it was just me not really caring about it, which also harmed me and just made the game much longer than it had to be. Um, Other than that, I really enjoy how the combat scenarios were far like wider in a sense. Like the level space was definitely bigger than the previous one. So I was able to move around, actually block and like just barrel roll through enemies like crazy. Another one, the enemy design. Oh my goodness. The last one I played the 2018 game just a month before this one, maybe 2 months, and I was already annoyed at the Draugrs and the trolls, and that I played the game probably like 3 or 4 times. And this one, oh my, how in the very first like hour, you already have a completely like huge variety of enemies. You're like, okay, we're facing somewhat humans, whatever, and then mystical animals, and then how each realm has their own type of variation of enemies and bosses, and how those mini bosses end up turning into regular enemies. Very insanely good mix. There is a point that once you start facing, I will say, the creature and the more mystical enemies, they become a little annoying and do require a lot more concentration, unlike the more humanoid enemy variants that you can just like mull through and just start attacking. You can just storm through them, which it does make sense, obviously. If the more mystical enemies, you require you to be, add magic and do your powers. And then the humanoid enemies, you just gotta basically just do, your chain Olympics type things. Other than that, the combat is super, super solid. Uses the controls to its fullest, like to max. It's interesting how it used to be the whole button smashing combo type controls from the previous games. But this one, you're using kind of like a shooter mechanic, because you're always attacking with the shoulder button. Whether it be a heavy or light attack, you're always using the buttons like if you were playing a shooter, which is very interesting. But it makes those shooter mechanics work in an action setting, which I at least I don't think I've played too many games like that. I don't remember if Elden Ring was exactly like that. I'm probably forgetting too much, but it's very, very interesting. I do like it a lot. Now, lastly, I will say is the bosses. There are not too many variety of them. What I will say also is that when every time, we're doing spoil talks. When you first face them, you're like, oh, okay, I'm done with them. That's it. Super awesome boss fight. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's another 2, 3. Maybe I'm being dramatic. One may have had fourth waves, but wow, I was like, damn, when is this going to end? So there were many times I was like, wow, I just keep taking L's, which would then replenish all my cooldowns. So then I would just use all the combos, spam them just so I could take the enemy down, which, it just made them feel pretty draggy. But then probably if I played it in lower difficulty, like I said, it wouldn't have been so difficult. Another thing is that at least some of the boss fights do change up and force you to play in a certain way, which I did appreciate that. Especially was it Hodor, the gatekeeper? Oh my goodness, was that boss fight super awesome. And I love that when I did switch to the regular weapons, like the chain and the axe, during the boss fight, like when I finally was able to take a hit on him, that was interesting that he was able to dodge those moves. So that was really good attention detail. But then after that, there's not too many enemies that face like that. Very ending with Thor and Odin, while the Thor one was super cool, I didn't like how Odin, basically we were facing him in the same spot as Thor. Even though, wow, they chopped the level up into pizza bites, like, or slices. Like I still would have liked if maybe they would have, he would have, done what he did to Thor, which we'll talk about in the story spoiler part. done that, gone to the basement part where he was at, right? And then maybe somewhere else, possibly another area, the realm that he was trying to get it to. I don't know. I did wish we would have saw more of Midgard, but that story part, we'll get to that. With the combat, there are a lot of mini boss fights and boss fight scenarios, which it got a little annoying by the end because I was like, wow, when is the story gonna finish? But if it was basically like God of War 3 was kind of like that as well. Like every couple of seconds you would just climb a rock and then boom, now you got to face a bunch of enemies. And it was like that all the time, like every like 2 minutes, you know. It's kind of like a comedy show. Every couple of minutes you got to hit a joke. And this one, well, every couple of steps you got to have a combat, scenario. So it does make sense. This one I just didn't expect it to be so long or have that much content. Actually, and that's a better way to describe it. I didn't think that this would have so much content and in every way. The side missions have combat scenarios. Everything's basically forcing you to really use the mechanics. I think it was very shy of trying to use the quick time events, mash buttons like the previous games because of how people might think about them. But if they would have done it, then more, because they do use a bit of it, I think it would have made even the title even like more like, oh wow, this is just like the old ones. But I love this game, best in the series. Let's talk about the level design as well. So the level design and language is just like the last game, just like the 2018 title. It's very similar. Said the game kind of looks just like it, but definitely upgraded with, just looks so much better. It definitely feels just like that game. So when you go certain areas, you're like, okay, there's possibly a chest here. This is how, I'm probably going to have to go in this direction. It's not too different from that one. What I will say is that each level kind of has like two forms of it. Like you'll see a certain environment that they're showcasing for that time, but then later on you'll then see a different version or form of that environment. So like maybe the second half of it, or like maybe the underground, or like the opposite side of the land. And then it almost feels like it's a completely like different area, but because it's the same land, then you're like, oh, okay, there's like at least some different was it environmental design, because you go from one like a mystical jungle, kind of similar like the rainforest type, and then you go to more like I would say like a African type setting where it felt more like jungle like. I wish there was like an elephant honestly in the corner, just would have made it look cool, like I don't know, like a Viking type thing. If that makes any sense, I don't know. It just felt very jungle like, because all the mystical creatures fit very well into it. Another one, I love how the puzzle design is very intuitive with the game as well. So there'll be areas where you can't just go through. I can't just walk past this area because, there's a whole blocking thing. So then you got to do a whole puzzle. So you do have to use your weapons to get through that puzzle. Just a little bit of thinking, but at least they're not crazy hard. Most of them I could get through. I did hear a lot of complaint that the characters, like Atreus and definitely Mimir, spoil a lot of the puzzles before you even get to them. But honestly, I'm bad with puzzles, even though I love puzzle games. When it comes to these action ones, I'm usually really bad at them, like Uncharted and all them. I don't know, I'm just awful at action game puzzles. So when the character at least gives me a little hint, I appreciate it. They're basically just saying, hey, how about you look to the left? I'm fine with that. It's never they're saying pull this, or at times they do, but most of the times I don't know what I'm doing to begin with. So at least telling them telling me that I need to pull something, I appreciate that. Another thing with that is that the characters do speak a lot, but they do give you hints throughout the combat. So you can just, kind of almost like a, manual vehicle, a stick shift vehicle. You can kind of just hear the game and all the characters, and you kind of get a hint of what you have to do. So like a character would say like, hey, like there's possibly a move coming up, you should block, or they're gearing up, they're charging up. Then you should definitely, consider what the side characters are telling you. Also, with the enemy, they're always like making subtle noises and little like movements that will like give you indicators of how to approach them. Like either I should attack them with like the yellow rings. You can like go and just shield and hit them. I've also noticed that even with the hard red rings, that you kind of cannot block that move. If you do a special attack right when they charge up and you see that ring before it like fully goes in, you can kind of stop them from doing it. So you can kind of cancel their animation as well. And cancel your animation too. Well, that goes with the combat. Okay, so what's another one? Yeah, with the level design, there's a lot of climbing, so it's kind of like an Uncharted game, but it's not like that heavy because most of everything is painted, just like the last game. It's not gold. Most of the stuff are like white, red. It's not like colors you cannot see, but definitely the path is kind of painted, so you do know where you kind of have to go sometimes. It is guiding you in that sense. And then also there's a lot of caves. There's a lot of like crevices that you're gonna go through, shimmy through, which I didn't find annoying. I know a lot of people do. I do. For me, it helps me because, like I said, I sometimes think I have to go back. So when I know there's like that little shimmy area, I know that, okay, this is an ending point, or usually an entry to a boss fight. So I'm usually like, you're always going to either get surprised at the very end, or you're going to get a scenario at something. So usually those shimmy points kind of tell me like, okay, something's going to happen. But yeah, I think that's good with the level design. Actually, lastly, with the level design is that with the first game, you can totally, from the very beginning, once you beat the game, you can start from the cabin and walk your way all the way to the top of the mountain, and it's seamless. It's very awesome. What I love about that. This one, it's completely different. Everything is all like in chunks. You got to piece the pieces together by the end. But what I do like about that is that it matches with the story of being unpredictable and making your own path. And again, like the gateway that you're going to these realms aren't from the Tears Tower, so it's not from a central point. They're from, I think, the ends of the tree's roots, so they're randomly in different areas. So it makes sense, but it definitely isn't as like build and construct together like the last game. But each level definitely is unique and well thought out. That some are just levels that you just go through. Some areas you're just going to go pass by, but then some have much more open, wider areas that you can then, go in and out and definitely figure out how you choose how you do your puzzles and path. And there's also just story in everything. And there's a lot of backtracking, but when you go through the story, you're only backtracking like once through a level. When you start going back and then doing all the extra stuff afterwards, then you might feel like, oh, I just came through this area, I'm going through this whole thing again. But if you do everything well or in your own pace in one shot, you shouldn't feel like you're backtracking too much. Now, quickly, we're going to go through sound. When it comes to just the game, what it's producing for, let's say, you walking, throwing, animations, everything super spot on, reactive. You really feel like when the axe is going through wood, when it hits an enemy, when it hits rocks and everything, you can hear that, especially in the headphones. I really appreciate the quality of the sound. the others that how it matched so well with the combat. Like I mentioned earlier, that the enemies are making reactive sounds to alert you on how you have to attack them and approach them. So it's not just them groaning and making just they whenever they're doing that, they're usually like doing a power up or they're charging at you. So then you know that okay, something I need to do something in this fight. So that's really great. And then yeah, like ocean sound, water crashing, people tearing up, bones breaking. Everything's crazy good. And then when it comes to the music, the score, oh my goodness, I believe the composer is Bear McCreary. I apologize if I butchered the name. He has a cameo in the game. Very interesting. I think you'll figure out who he plays, but wow, all the music that he did from the 2018 title, all those themes make a return, and wow, you don't hear them as often. It's genius. When you hear the themes, it hits so hard. You're like, yes, keep going, and then you hear the familiar themes, and they add like a large orchestra, like Marvel thing, like extra to them. You're like, oh my, especially in the ending battle fight when you start charging all the gates up, like you do the battle monologue. Oh wow, that ending theme is so good. But yeah, all the music is great. The Brock funeral song, that one hits so hard for an end credit, makes everything feel super sad. And then all the original score is really great. The battle themes are probably the battle themes are one of my favorite in a while in in games. I love Kingdom Hearts, so that I love sound design when it comes to a level, because when you're in and out of combat without having to know it, the different sounds and everything. And this one had sometimes some really awesome beats, especially in boss fights. And also to kind of informing you on when you were getting to like a cutscene or when you were in basic areas. And when it is silent, when you're out in the open world and there's nothing and you just hear the environment, great sound, makes you feel like you're in each one of the realms organically, with either the sands blowing in the desert, the jungles with all the creatures and animals making noises, all that stuff, the plants, and also like the snow coming down. Like in this game, maybe it's because it's getting cold right now, but man, you feel like it is a endless winter in this one. It's the sound design is really good on that part too, or maybe that's also the level design. But no, let's get to the story. Now, I won't go beat by beat on the story. I'm just going to give my thoughts and opinion, but I will explain certain stuff, and obviously I will spoil things. But what I am going to try to get across on my thoughts on the story is that how I took it, how I felt about it, and my overall opinions on it. Because obviously, writing, visuals, cutscene, all that is subjective or whatever. So I know not many are going to agree with me on that part. And I'm not one of those history YouTube channels, so I'm not going to explain everything that happened beat by beat. But I'm at least going to try to do a decent rant about the story. So if you appreciate that, we're gonna go. All right, so obviously this is following up from the 2018 title, which that one we figure out that Kratos and Atreus were following a prophecy that their mother left for them, that basically they had to follow this certain path so they can rebuild their relationship, and also kind of start a spark that would then lead to the realms and just like the world of this, of this mythology, to storm up and fight back at the new evil god, Odin. So that they can then form this event called Ragnarok, but basically, restore balance to the lands, right? and rewrite all the wrongs that happened. So while that was like the first game, this one really built off those, like that foundation so heavy. I had a friend that played with me from the beginning of this title, that he did not play the first one. So I'm very surprised. I'm gonna be very shocked to see what his overall opinions are in the game, even though he's not that far into it. Obviously, I was anxious to beat the game, so I beat it in like 3 or 4 days, but he's still halfway. But with that, the I really feel you do have to play the first game to really appreciate a lot of the beats, because I feel like you would just think like, okay, I don't understand why they're showing me this emotional part. Why is this such a heavy secret? Why is this character feeling this way? Because if you play the previous one, those subtle moments that are like, oh, okay, I know exactly where this is following from or what this is answering. That's really great. There's not too many things. I don't think they ever answer who blew the horn and stuff like that, but maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully the theory channels will answer some of those questions, which I can't wait to see what was good, because they regardless of the theories right or wrong, they're all quality content. They're all really great. So I just enjoy watching everyone's stuff. I'll have links down below. Was it another one is that from the first game, then this one, from the very beginning, Kratos and Atreus are much more emotionally like open to talking to each other than the last one. Like, it takes place technically 3 years after that game, but you feel like through that entire time, like they've been talking to each other, maybe throwing like jabs and jokes and criticizing each other and having like issues with each other, because they immediately actually like just talk. And Atreus feels already strong enough to question his father and certain stuff, and then Kratos is also telling him certain stuff, and also like pushing him and like messing with him at times and all that. It's really great. Or he, at moments when he does need to push him, he knows exactly what to say because he's already gone through those moments with him. Just from the get-go, how the characters were just more emotionally capable of just expressing their feelings was just a great watch to see. Especially towards the end, man. There's so many moments that I was tearing up. The scene where Thor and in the bar fight, well, awesome fight, but the whole ending scene of him having the talk with his daughter, honestly, I was like, holy shit. This, if the whole bar fight was like an 8 out of 10, the ending scene made it like, I don't know, like a 20 out of 10. The acting was just incredible. How we just had a whole awesome, just like cheery moment, and then it just went to a serious, talk about, addiction and change and acceptance. So very, very, really appreciative. I wish there would have been more of that in certain other stuff, because you don't really see that too much in games, and even in movies you don't even see it performed or executed as well as this stuff. And honestly, yeah, this game sometimes it blurs the line from like a movie, because you're like, dude, there's the acting. The acting sometimes surpasses many actors, not to insult anything, but yeah, it does surpass some of the acting in some big, Hollywood blockbusters or even any film. Same thing with the camera work. The cinematography is crazy. I won't say that they break cuts. They use the cuts very interesting to move them sporadically and like rush, so it still feels like the camera never moved away, but still awesome, top tier. I know I'm skipping through the story, but it's only because like it's hard to explain the story in your first playthrough, because it's so much to take in and it's so long. So when I was going through, I was like, okay, at what point is it going to get there? When is it going to end? And I did notice at a certain point it was just like the original, where in the first one you're like, okay, I got to get to the top of the mountain and then we're done. But then once we got to the top of the mountain, something happened and then boom, now got to figure out we got to not just now we got to get through the gate, right? So this one has at least like maybe if 2 or 3 get to the top of the mountain moments where like, okay, this is the path. Okay, no, that's just a chapter. Okay, now we're getting this is the next goal. This is another phase. So there is a lot of that. I kind of feel it's also like I mentioned earlier, like a Final Fantasy game. So if you just take the levels like, okay, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to try to fight as many enemies so I can level up because the next realm or the next area is going to be far more difficult. So now I'm going to have to work on that base. That's how you should approach the game when you're playing it. But it's long. It took me like 36 hours. I enjoyed every minute of it, but because I was so anxious with the story, I think if you were just casually playing it and you were playing like every like 2, 3, 4 hour bursts, oh my goodness, it's definitely going to take you over a week to even get through the story, let alone all the side stuff. So it is a chunky game. But and that's not bad. That's honestly not a bad fall. I just didn't expect it. Kind of like Red Dead Redemption. I was like, oh, I should be done with this, and then I was like, wait, what? Why is this an 80-hour game almost? Like just story wise, right? So this is kind of like that in a way that if you do take your time and everything, it is definitely 40 hours for sure. No, the amount of content and quality of it definitely is surprising. It really overshadows a lot of games. It's great that it's been like 2 years that the PS5 has come out, and like this is like a game that you're like, okay, this is next gen. But I was playing on the PS4, and it worked perfectly fine. I did have some bug issues with the enemies on texturing mainly. It was just textures, nothing like that breaking, but it basically still felt like a very huge upgraded PS4 game with some PS5, additions like a larger environment, bigger cutscenes, more enemies, and all that. But I don't know if being a PS5 exclusive would have benefited more from it because it still felt like a very chunky, good slice game. All right, but I got to get back to the story. Yeah, we start off and Atreus wants to stop the prophecy and stop Ragnarok. And while Kratos, not that he doesn't want to be involved with it at all, he just knows that if he does get involved, it's going to be very bad or it could definitely not end well. So he wants to approach it with caution. But it is surprising that like they're still both willing to go at it. So it's not like, let's say, like I always reference like Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker's like, oh, I'm afraid to use my powers. Like, no, they know that they kind of are gonna have to deal with this eventually. But they're each have their own approach to it, and they're both valid. How Kratos is being very reserved, and even though he doesn't want to at times, the times that he does, he usually has he usually comes with a good point across. Like, hey, we should approach it this way. We should be more smarter about it. And you're like, oh wow, Kratos has always been. We've always known him as apparently a Spartan general and all that. So it is smart that even from the beginning he is strategical and saying, no, we should do it this way, or maybe we should do it like that. Even though we don't listen to him most of the time because Atreus is the star in this one, and we're following his guide most of the time. It's still awesome to see that dynamic because Kratos may be right and Atreus may seem like he's wrong. It's still the approach of going at Kratos' advice and following Atreus' path is a good blend of what even the story is of them both accepting each other and using not just that each other as like tools and partners, but also extending that to other characters, to other people, and how you just don't play as Kratos and Atreus, but with other side characters. like Brock and Sindri end up being people that you can use. The sword, whatever the sword was, the talking sword. There must have been another character, Freya. Also, like I was just completely shocked that they still had that they basically were able to show that they can still use different escort or partner uh mechanics to the gameplay and add different variety was really great. Because I was like, oh, okay, so if it's just going to be the whole Atreus Kratos arc, and it's going to get boring at some point, so that they do switch it up. And I haven't even talked about that. You get to play as Atreus, which once that happened, I thought it was for a small chunk, but they went full on like Last of Us 2, and you're like, no, you're playing Atreus for like good moments of the game. And I was fine with it. He played well. I was surprised that his arrow mechanics were very good, very responsive. The tools that he had worked. I was almost scared in investing in his tree because I was like, is this gonna apply to when we get back with Kratos? And it ends up it did. So he was actually stronger in using a lot of those tools and specials in that one. So then. Now, I could be wrong, but I think that if you do switch some of the stuff when you're not playing as him, he still use some of those moves and combos. But that's really cool. But yeah, it was just shocking that we were actually playing as Atreus and seeing huge story moments. The one where we meet Angrboda, I was very shocked at how long that scene was, and I almost was very annoyed by it. But once we finish it and then we know in the story that it was, a 2-day event, then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm completely fine with it. I wish I didn't rush or I wasn't so anxious about it because it paid off. Because I was like, whoa, why is this taking so long? And that all the side missions, if you do them right, it makes sense with the story. Like in between those moments in time, those characters are doing that while the other character is on in their own quest. So I was like, okay, I know I'm with just Kratos and what is it, Freya, why we're doing so many things, but then it's like, oh, well, Atreus is doing this at this moment, so it makes sense. He was gone for 2 days, so of course they were doing this ish. But it usually is going forward. There's not too much time skipping, honestly. I don't even think there's any time skip at all. They just do a good blend on just making it feel like it makes sense. But the characters evolve. The writing is superb. Like it's so crazy how like Kratos just barely, like even in the original games, he barely talked. He was just he was always just angry. And while he still he talked obviously a lot in the last game, he still was kind of quiet. Whenever he talked, it meant it meant something, right? But in this one, like he's talking and actually having conversations, and so they're add even more weight because he's actually like trying to throw words out there, and sometimes they don't work, or like what he was expressing wasn't didn't come out across the right way. So those are great moments to see. So, the whole trial error of trying to be social for Kratos was very interesting because he sees that his son is very open and expressive, and he's like, well, maybe I should be a bit. So he does kind of mimic some of the attitude from his son. And Atreus just leading. I wouldn't be surprised if the actor Sonny ends up winning any awards or being praised for it, because honestly, it's just incredible the decision he made. I liked his acting in the first one. I was fine with the writing. I didn't find him annoying like a lot of people did. I was fine with it. I was completely down with the father and son dynamic, but this one of him being like a teenager, adult, and it was just shocking. I was like, wow, he holds his own. I want to know what Atreus was doing. He was a solid, mature character. So that was great to see a character actually grow and mature. Another was that like it makes sense that in the end he ends up going on his own thing and venturing on his own because if you think about and during those times they did kind of treat teenagers or young adults far more serious. I don't know, they just they just sent them out to do their own thing at a much earlier age. So seeing him, what was he like? Probably like 16 in this game, already deciding to go do his own quest. It kind of makes sense if Kratos was accepting. It's like, you know what, you can kind of do your thing because Kratos, when he was a kid, he was already at war and doing stuff, and the boy's already done so much just after the first game. So compared to this, he knows that he could hold his own. They went to war, right? So they definitely know that he can handle his own. But the twist, I was very shocked on the twist with Tyr. I didn't see that coming. Hopefully my second playthrough, I can kind of piece together that he was, Odin the whole time. That was shocking. But I don't know what to say because at a moment I was like not liking Tyr, and then all of a sudden he changed, and then you find out it was because of that. So I got to figure out more on that one just so it can make more sense for me. So that requires a second playthrough. What is it? Obviously the L with Brock hurt. That really hurt. That Sindri, the merchants played such a big role. So Brock and Sindri were incredible. The other would be Freya's arc that she changed from enemy to ally. That was great to see. And then I was just surprised that she became a character that we actually invested in, and she had her own tree. And at least that in the end, she was basically our companion to switch Atreus up so we can still continue and play. That was super cool. I don't know where that's going to go with future-wise if they continue the story, but that was super cool to see that arc happen because I just did not expect it. It's a lot of unexpected things that the characters flip. Because I would have thought she would have been an enemy boss at some, like a final boss, and she would have took an L. But no, she didn't. And she played a big role in the ending fight too. And in Kratos changing. So I do want to play the first one again to see like, oh wow, okay, it's like Freya plays a way bigger role than, that was cool to see. And then a lot of the middle of the game, honestly, up until the Tyr moment, is character development. Yeah, they're going through the 9 realms. They're solving clues. They're piecing the puzzle together to figure out how they should approach Ragnarok, right? Most of it is character development throughout the whole thing, which I'm fine with, but there were a lot of times I was like, okay, like I'm literally just going through this to get to an end, to pick up something, collect something, break something, or do whatever, smash something. But in between, we're crying, we're talking it out, we're venting, and then we see fight cutscene, and then we backtrack all the way to the beginning of the level again, and we do a little mix of that. Now we talk about how our emotions were, how we're good again, and all that, which is a lot of that over and over again. But the acting and writing is just so good that I was just 100% down and fine with it. I was like, okay, yeah, give more. Yes, yeah, tell her how you feel, please. Just make up, please. Just get better. Like you want that. You want the characters to resolve their situation. So whenever a new emotional blockage came, like, oh, my father is this, or oh, my brother and I are facing this turmoil, I was like, yes, well, how are we going to solve this? This is probably going to be great writing. So I was never not about it. So that was very different for this game because it was just so much more of that. But it was separate. It was spread across other characters besides Kratos and Atreus. So at least it added a good blend. But yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about this game story because, like I said, it's mainly emotional built throughout. The whole thing with the mask, I'm still confused with, only because I wish we would have figured out what the mask really was. I don't know if there's like a book thing. I don't know if there's a mission that explains more about the mask. I don't know if that play a bigger role in like another game. But that kind of disappointed me as someone who played Kingdom Hearts. That kind of felt like the whole box. If you know about the whole mystery box thing of the Masters, you know, you're like, okay, the whole game we're talking about this new thing, MacGuffin, and ends up it means nothing. You know, not that it didn't mean anything, but it kind of felt like it because we're like, okay, well, at least, you know, what was it? You know, I don't know. I'm not as smart when it comes to writing, maybe, so I don't know why they introduced the whole mask thing, but that was definitely an interesting element to it. I wish it would have had just a bigger payoff. And also just more of like talkie from like the villains, like from Thor and Odin, especially Odin. I just wanted more to see on him and his arc, because that was just super interesting. Honestly, the acting was just crazy. The casting decision was super good. All the motion capturing is super solid. You feel whenever Kratos is like about to tear up, or when he's super angry, or when he wants to hold his position on Thor not fighting back, how he just, you know, basically fixes his posture and becomes a little bit more stiff to show that, no, I mean what I'm saying, and if you're gonna come at me, then it's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of if you want to mess around, you'll find out from Kratos, and it's super awesome. Yeah, but a lot of it is really just the characters, Kratos and Atreus, learning to fix their relationships, and then spreading that towards other enemies. So then they, other enemies, well, honestly, yeah, towards other enemies, but also allies. So then they can build a better alliance. Like the entire time, he's just trying to, you know, give everyone a second chance, like he had. You know, he gives Heimdall a second chance. Every Kratos is always giving every enemy another way out to change. They choose not to, and then he shows, you know, what happens from that. A lot of, you know, you mess around, you find out, but he is definitely allowing people to mess around to the extent that, hey, you know what, you can also change from this and get back and act like this never happened. And, you know, it's very appreciative. Because while it's also cool that you get to see that, you know, villains are being villains, so they won't change, or some do, right? That is pretty nice to see. Just very different arcs all around. But yeah, the ending fight, I wish it was maybe a little bit longer, crazier. I wish we would have saw more of Midgard at all. I think we barely saw Midgard. Like, we saw an image of it, but I wish we would have really stormed the gates of Midgard, or in Midgard, because we did storm the gates. But no, I just wish it was a little bit longer, because it was like, wow, this was a long build-up. I would have expected like a, you know, Kingdom Hearts type. I know I reference that a lot, but like those type of finales, like, oh, yo, this is a 2-3 hour boss fight. But no, it wasn't that crazy. It was still and it was mainly just a realistic emotional ride throughout the whole thing. But I still thought the ending was great. The whole prophecy at the very end of Kratos like regaining his life again, like building, making us, getting a second chance, becoming a new god that people can actually, you know, worship and look up to, and say like, oh yeah, Kratos led us to victory in this one, and he defeated the god because they were so bad. Like, oh wow, like I didn't expect that from them. I was surprised that they added that in the trailers, that little line from Odin, the jab that he threw at him, and it ends up that was the big ending twist in the end, that Kratos does become, you know, a god of peace, of war, like Tyr. That really hit me super hard. It was very nice to see that, and he took it. You see the emotional delivery from the performance. You're like, wow, he that's what he really has wanted. He has just wanted loved and acceptance, and that he sees that that is a prophecy that is good for him, because now it's like a motivating thing. Like, okay, no, I'm going to try to do things because I know there is a payoff, because he already did the work. It's more like how he's going to leave more of a legacy foundation, because he already did all the work. So he already has at least a good base of the worship to follow on. But oh wow, I don't know. I really want them to do more DLC. This was just great. I loved it. I know I was mainly rant. I didn't like explain the story beat by beat. I know I said in the beginning, but there's not really much to say without like just being like a narrative story thing, you know, like just telling you everything that happened. But I did like the game a lot. I appreciate it. It's a great follow up. I gave it my review a 9 out of 10. I stand by that. I think that this one makes the first one far better, and then vice versa. The first one makes this super awesome because you had all the things to build from the first one. So I would say that this big chapter, this whole story arc of Kratos from 2018 to now, is a solid like 9 out of 10. Like the story is a 10. Honestly, the story is a 10. If you know, the gameplay has some stuff and everything, and obviously it's not perfect, but it's basically a 10. You know, I'm giving it a 9 because yeah, I played on the PS4, so there were some, you know, setbacks and everything. But this is a crazy awesome game. The amount of content that's in here, definitely worth the $60-$70, whatever you have to end up doing, but it's worth it just by playing the story. So you get your money's worth in a story game. There's no complaining on, is it long enough, or is there enough no, it's there. But no, it does require you, I think, to play the first game to really appreciate this one and really get like, okay, I know what they're doing, I know what everything's about, I know how to approach all the levels and everything. But I'm really interested to see what everyone thinks. Please comment down below. Do you agree with me? Do you think I was wrong? Do you think I rambled way too long? Did I make any sense? And did you like the game? Was it easy for you? Like I said, it was. I'm probably gonna play again on my Twitch channel, which you can check it out. But I'm probably gonna be playing that. This is probably gonna be my main game, along with all the reviews and side stuff that I do in my channel. So please check out to see more. I post every Monday and Friday. Other than that, I really appreciate you checking out this video. I know it was a long one, but thank you. Please tell me you want to see more like this, videos like this. But yeah, this has been a rant from your boy Skater V, and I'm signing out. Peace.